Hello and welcome our blood viewers to RTD's News English edition. As usual, we'll begin tonight's news with the major and top highlights. Let's follow. The head of state receives a delegation from South Sudan. And on the international scene, hundreds of dignitaries from around the world in London. Those were our major top highlights. Welcome back to our newsroom, our beloved viewers. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, received late Monday morning at the Palace of the Republic the Vice President at South Sudan, Mr. Taban Dengai, bearing a message from the President of South Sudan, Mr. Salva Kiir. The message delivered to Mr. Taban Dengai relates to the willingness of South Sudan to work towards the final launch of a strategic series of economic and development partnerships between the two countries. As a logistics hub of the first rank, the Republic of Djibouti is intended to serve as a platform for relying resources, including energy of South Sudan, a landlocked country. Our country has also profiled to provide technical expertise and significant added value to South Sudan in its determination to tie with an efficient process of operation of dry and river ports. It should also be noted that the information and communication technologies as a sector that will be the subject of sustained cooperation between the two countries. At the end of the audience, the Vice President of South Sudan in the Djibouti Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mr. Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, present at the event, spoke to the press. They reported in their interventions that the initiation of these economic projects requires the association of Ethiopia, a sister country located between Djibouti and South Sudan, and consequently the prioritization of a tripartite agreement between the Republic of Djibouti, the Democratic and Federal Republic of Ethiopia, and the Republic of South Sudan. During his talks with the President of the Republic, the Vice President of South Sudan was accompanied by a high-level delegation from his country. The Ministry of Roads, Mr. Simon Mijok Majak, the Ministry of Transport, Mr. Madoud Biriel, and the Ministry of Communication, Mikhail Mikoui Louis, accompanied the Vice President of South Sudan, among others. On the Djiboutian side, the Ministry of Communication in charge of Posts and Telecommunications, Mr. Radwan Abdullahi Bahdon, the Ministry of Infrastructure and Equipment, Mr. Hassan Muhammad Ibrahim, and the Charge of Affairs of the Republic of Djibouti to the Republic of South Sudan, Mr. Hassan Roble Mahmoud, were present at this event. The Secretary General of the Presidency, Mr. Mohammed Abdullahi Wa'es, also participated in this meeting. In an interview, the Vice President of South Sudan, Mr. Taban Dengai, addressed the most important outcome of the meeting that took place between him and the President of the Republic. For his part, His Excellency, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, the official spokesman for the government, Mr. Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, commented on the visit of the Vice President in South Sudan to Djibouti and his meeting with the President of the Republic. The Prime Minister, Mr. Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, received this morning in the Lounge of Honor of the Primacy the French Ambassador to Djibouti, Mr. Arnaud Guillou, for a farewell visit. Indeed, after having worked for 3 years to bring closer and smooth relations between the two countries, Mr. Guillou is called to represent the French Republic to the Republic of Madagascar. However, he made a point of thanking the Prime Minister, Mr. Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, for the warm welcome and the continuous commitment of the Djibouti government during his mandate. The Prime Minister, Mr. Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, thanked in turn Ambassador for all his efforts made in the realization of its contribution in several projects in Djibouti. Attended this interview between the Prime Minister and the Ambassador, the Secretary General of the Primacy, Mr. Naguib Abdullah Mohammed Kamil. The President of the National Assembly, Mr. Mohammed Ali Hamad, received late Monday morning at the headquarters of the Parliament an Italian parliamentary delegation accompanied by the Italian Ambassador to Djibouti with residence in Addis Ababa, Mr. Agostino Perez. At the beginning of this meeting, Mr. Mohammed Ali Hamad welcomed the Senator Roberta Pinuti and expressed that this visit shows once again that the relations between the two countries are excellent. In this regard, the Senator expressed her thanks and gratitude to the President for the warm welcome and hospitality reserved to her delegation and expressed her joy about the level and the evaluation of the relations between the two countries in the field of defense and security. The meeting between the President and the Senator also focused on a number of bilateral, regional, and international issues of common interest. They also reiterated their willingness to strengthen relations between Djibouti and Italy in the field of maritime piracy and security, but also on all levels of multidimensional and fruitful cooperation. Note that the Republic of Djibouti hosts for several years on its soil Italian troops who, remember, were deployed in Djibouti in the fight against maritime piracy in the region. The Ministry of Health, Dr. Ahmed Roble Abdullah, received in his office a delegation of medical specialists from MGM Hospital Group in Chennai from the Republic of India. MGM Hospital Group is a multi-specialist medical center offering treatment and care in several health specialties. This delegation was accompanied by the Ambassador of the Republic of Djibouti in India, Mr. Isa Abdullah Assoui. The meeting was also attended by the Acting Secretary General of the Ministry of Health, Mr. Abdul Ghadir Mohammed Garad, the Director of International Cooperation, Mrs. Noura Abdi Farah, and senior officials of the Ministry of Health. During this meeting, the two parties discussed several opportunities, that is, to strengthen cooperation in the field of health, improve the technical facilities of the third level, and the quality of care. It should be noted that the discussions also focused on the gradual reduction in the near future of medical evacuations abroad, whose expenses are a very important part of the national budget. Thus, it was agreed that part of the medical evacuations will be taken care of in our hospitals, and that only the serious emergencies and the very complicated cases will be evacuated abroad. To conclude, both parties agreed to sign a partnership agreement. The Ministry of Social Affairs and Solidarity, Mrs. Ulufa Ismail Abdo, and the Ministry of Agriculture, Water, Fisheries, Livestock and Fisheries Resources, Mr. Mohammed Ahmed Awale, took part today in the launch of the Fishermen Support Project at the conference room of the Ministry of Agriculture. The assistance offered jointly by the MAS and the Ministry of Agriculture aims to strengthen the resilience and food security and nutrition of fishermen victims in turn of climate hazards and food price inflation felt in recent years. The President of the Republic of Djibouti, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, wished to dispatch assistance to these fishermen. He has therefore mandated the MAS and the Ministry of Agriculture to provide emergency assistance to these fishermen and their families. The Ambassador of the Republic of Djibouti to the Republic of Sudan, Mr. Isa Khairi Roble, was received Mr. Hisham Ali Ahmed, Minister of Transport of the Republic of Sudan, on a working visit in his office. The meeting took place in a climate of trust and focused on the subject of transport, especially maritime transport. First of all, the ambassador presented the possibilities offered by the ports of Djibouti in the fields of management of free zones and maritime transport. The Djibouti Ports and Free Zones Authority has acquired a great deal of experience in its areas of activity and is ready to be a hub in these areas for the benefit of IGAD countries in particular and countries in the sub-region in general. For his part, the minister first thanked the ambassador before expressing the desire of the Sudanese government to sign a memorandum of understanding between the Ports and Free Zones Authority of Djibouti. The minister requested an exchange of visits between the officials of the two companies. He affirmed his personal wish to visit Djibouti with a strong delegation to deepen the discussions. Finally, His Excellency wished his host every success in his function and his noble mission to the Republic of Sudan. Under the high patronage of the Prime Minister, the Ministry of Interior launched the National Week of Identity. It is in this perspective that yesterday morning, the Directorate of Population and Family has, through the branches of the National Identification Number of the 2nd and 5th District, organized an open day as part of the National Week of Identity. On open day, at the various centers that saw the participation of the President of the Communes of Bel'aus and Belbala, the sub-prefectures of the representative districts, the head of the center, as well as local elected officials of the Commune of Bel'aus and Belbala. The officials were therefore able to receive in-depth explanations on the security of the data and were also able to discover the integrated contours adapted to the needs of the population to exchange all administrative documents. In close collaboration with FAO Djibouti, the equipment provided with the emergency aid could be mastered and familiarized in the field during the 5th theoretical and practical training. A training course which took place in Tajorra on pest control was held in the Comté. The training of national trainers focused on the retraining of agents involved in pest control in terms of surveillance and survey. control and environmental and health monitoring, led by the two sub-directors of the Tajura and Obokh under the supervision of Engineer Ahmed Ibrahim of the Directorate of Agriculture and Forestry. This workshop brought together technicians from Tajura and Obokh for capacity building. The equipment provided emergency was mastered and familiarized in the field during the fifth theoretical and practical training sessions. A strong joint delegation from the Ministry of Agriculture and senior officials led by the Secretary General of the Ministry of Agriculture, including FIDES Regional Director for the Near East, North Africa and Europe, accompanied by Mrs. Rasha Umar and FIDES Director of Djibouti and Sudan, visited the Obokh region. Upon arrival in the Obokh, the delegation was welcomed by the authorities of the Obokh region. On arrival at the port of Obokh, the delegation was welcomed by the authorities of the Obokh region, including the Prefect, Abdul Malik Mohammed Bonwaita, the civil and military authorities, and the community of fishermen of the Obokh region. The main objective of the mission was to visit the Obokh region, and by the Ministry of Agriculture and IFAD was to supervise the work carried out under the IFAD-funded PARIF project, particularly the rehabilitation of the Obokh fishery. In partnership with the Prefecture of the Region of Dakhil, the NGO held a meeting in Dakhil City yesterday morning to reflect on revitalize the local peace community of the region. The meeting, chaired by the Prefect, Mr. Yusuf Ali, was attended by the Acting President of the Dakhil, Mr. RC, Mr. Ibrahim Goura Abdullah, officials of the security forces, as well as representatives of the two pastoral communities living in the Gubad area, and women's and youth organization. The discussions focused on the following issues and aspects: conflict prevention and resolution in the Gubad transitory zone, and the reduction of the number of robberies or attempted robberies in the border area of Gubad. This week, in the international scene, all eyes will coverage on New York, with more than 150 leaders scheduled to speak in a world in crisis. Let's follow.
This weekend, all eyes will be on New York with more than 115 leaders due to speak in world in crisis shaken by the war in Ukraine in particular. A summit on the occasion will be held first this Monday, September 19, and from Tuesday, the head of state and government will follow one another on the UN platform. This General Assembly first marks the return to face-to-face meeting for the head of state, head of the government, and minister who will speak. For the past 2 years, due to COVID-19, some of their speeches had been made in front of recorded videos.
Several hundred leaders and representatives of the world's monarchies gathered in London on Monday to attend the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II.
Kingdom in mourning son's death of Elizabeth II will pour its queen this Monday during a state funeral that promised to be grandiose with a huge crowd and the natural from around the world. A minute of silence observed until the top of Big Ben this Sunday at 8 p.m. The British were invited to remain silent for 1 minute everywhere in the country to pay tribute to Queen Elizabeth II. The country then paused for 16 seconds. Silence reigned in Westminster Hall, while the public is still allowed to pay their respect to the coffin of Elizabeth II until Monday morning at the at dawn before the funeral of sovereign. Many people gathering this street of London, especially around Big Ben, respected this minute of silence with solemnity. Some apologized. Final broke out in the ground at the end of the minute silence. The Prime Minister Liz Truss came out in front of her residence at the tiny Downing Street, still in the English capital, to pay her respects head down in front of the door.
Well, by this, our blood viewers, we finally conclude this edition. Thank you for being with us, and make sure to tune in later for more. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.